what he is paid to do. According to the Congresswoman, ICE's enforcement of national laws is immoral. Watch this.
We love to talk about this issue about the MS-13 gangs. We love to paint immigrants as criminals. That is not the complete facts. And that is very offensive for me to see continuing to happen, is continuing to message this anti-immigrant agenda.
First of all, no one on this panel is anti-immigrant. We're law enforcement officers enforcing law that you all enacted. So to sit there and say that we're anti-immigrant is just wrong.
Well, we invited that non-genius member of Congress to come on the show and explain the reasoning behind her statement, but of course she declined. Instead, we're joined by New York attorney and illegal immigrant, Caesar.
Tucker, thank you so much for having me here.
Listen, this is maybe the most amusing thing I think I've ever seen. So here's I guess she's a member of Congress, going head-to-head with the director of ICE and claiming that it is wrong for him to do what he is paid to do. What does she think ICE does?
Well, any law enforcement agency, their job is to keep us safe, correct? Their job is to trust law enforcement to ensure everyone is safe because of their
It's to enforce the law.
No, exactly. Why do we enforce the law? To keep us safe. Now, ICE is tripling the amount of people arrested without violent criminal records. So the congressman is right at that point where not only is ICE going after the rapists, the murderers, they're going after grandma, they're going after...
You're the attorney. I've got a question for you. So the law says that ICE can only arrest people with certain kinds of criminal records or commit certain kinds of crimes? Is that what the federal law says?
Federal law says that Immigration Customs Enforcement has to detain people who violently violate anything like that. But the law says that ICE, any law enforcement agency, has the discretion to pursue the most violent criminals. So ICE is going after the grannies instead of the murderers. ICE is going after the day laborers instead of the rapists. So ICE is not doing their job. They are just focusing on everyone instead of
Okay, so for example, hold on. You're legally correct.
No. Like I had DACA. Immigration status.
Okay. So you're not understanding.
I need to explain the law.
No, just as you said, you may be an attorney misstating a fact, which is that people who are here illegally are by definition violating federal law. And so ICE absolutely has a right, in fact, it's its charter to enforce federal law, so it has a right to detain them. The United States government and its citizens have a right to deport them. Whether they choose to or not is another question. But you can't attack somebody for enforcing the law as written. By the way, it's written by the Congress in which that member of Congress sits. So I told you this part of the law school, but what she said is insane.
No, I think very clearly. I think, listen, ICE has a job to do. No question about it. The Congress has their job to do. And you know what? They haven't got their job done in years. They haven't passed immigration reform. They haven't done proper.
That's what I'm saying.
I think it comes to the point of where we are at this moment that we need to keep this nation safe. And ICE should go after people who violently.
I'm taking a lecture on ICE law from someone who broke our laws to come here. But hold on. If you think that that's true, then you're obviously not bothered by the president's emphasis on rounding up known members of a murderous street gang. But I bet you are bothered by that, right? Are you one of the people who, are you one of the animal rights activists who wept when he used the word animal to describe MS-13?
Well, listen, I think we should keep our nation safe. And law enforcement has a job to do. Whether it's the NYPD, the LAPD, or ICE, they have a job to do. Now, the president is confusing two things, like many things. MS-13 is the product of the U.S. We created MS-13. Just as we created the
This is actually one thing that does irritate me, so I want to cut this part of the conversation short because I don't want to get mad at you. But blaming the United States for federal ODs, for MS-13, for the waves of people coming to this country illegally, in your description, it's always
in the 1980s. Just look it up.
I don't have any patience for this, so I'm not going to let you continue because you don't know what you're talking about. Let me just ask you really quickly. If you think the job of ICE is to protect American citizens and they ought to go after violent criminals, then why wouldn't you be encouraging them to round MS-13 member in this country illegally and deport him tomorrow. But I bet you're not for that. I bet you're defending MS-13 like everybody else in the country, right?
I think MS-13 or any gang member, they should spend the rest of their life in prison. That's what
if you believe someone's a member of MS-13 and he's here illegally, you don't think that's enough to deport him?
Well, why are we going to really exacerbate that problem? You know, it's the logic that we need to see. We can exacerbate the problem by sending people
it's always
who we created.
You're not even a citizen. Caesar, thank you.
Thank you so much.
We're not going to be a stupid country anymore. We've stopped it. We're not going to be. And you can say what you want, but I think border security and security general is a big issue for the Republican Party.
Hey, you know what? I actually think it's beyond Republicans. I think the average American wants border security. I think that's the most confusing issue on Democrats. I think everybody really wants the security in the southern border, and they're concerned about it. They're crazy about the president on the border.
Well, you kept saying there are the majority of Californians don't want sanctuary cities, and then all the cities started to vote against it. Let's bring in Tommy Barron, who lives in California. She's a Fox News contributor and can weigh in on this. Why is border security so important to the folks who live in California, those who support the president? Well, as Californians and other states, we understand that we are the most vulnerable when it comes to these issues, but it's not just us. We just deal with the problem more close to home. This is an American issue. As Brian said, when I hear the president double down on border security, of course that's going to be a winning agenda item for this president and those who choose to support border security. What we really need to ask is, why are the Democrats so against it? Why do the Democrats not believe in the integrity of our borders, our laws, and protecting the American people? That's the question that needs to be asked, not why is Trump doubling down? Of course he's doubling down. This president believes in a secure border.
So, Tommy, let me ask you something. There's a push now to Senator Cory Booker and some moderates in the House to get something done on DACA before the midterms. The thought was no one's going to do anything else because they just want to go to the midterms with what they've done or haven't done. What do you think about that? The president maybe going there and saying, give me the $25 billion for the wall, I'll give you DACA, and I'll go back for chain migration, go back for the lottery. Do you think that benefits him or us?
I think this president has said multiple times that he's willing to compromise, but I think what's most important, not only for President Trump, but for the Americans that voted for President Trump because of his promise to build a wall, is that before we start dealing with those that are already here illegally, that we have border enforcement. That has to be number one. The American people have to trust that first, and then we can have a bigger conversation about immigration reform. But I think to do it piecemeal, I think it's a mistake. I think this president needs to hold his ground on this, and the American people will stand behind him.
Which means nothing gets done, though.
It might mean that nothing gets done immediately, but I think there's no pressure on the Republicans, any of the Democrats, to do something, and not just piece by piece, but have real, true immigration reform, which first time that's what the American people want. And us as voters, we have to make sure that we make that clear and we vote on that issue.
Democrats, in resisting this president on the wall, have tried to characterize his policies as inhumane, which means when a photo surfaced of migrants just a couple of days ago, they went over the edge. John Favreau, former speechwriter for tweeted, "This is happening right now, and the only debate that matters is how we force our government
Children in cages.
As humane kids in cages, and it's got to be Donald Trump." It turns out, oops, these photos are from 2014 when Barack Obama was president.
Well, it turns out that many on the other side are not concerned with the truth so long as they can attack President Trump. This was a great misstep on their part, and it just goes to show that the level of partisan politics in this country has reached such an extreme level that the truth really doesn't matter anymore. You have an image, you circulate it, it's what President Trump calls fake news. It looks pretty bad for them. And moving forward, I hope that as Democrats and Republicans, we can do what's right and we can stand for our beliefs and not just pick the side of who we voted for or our partisan line. That's not what this country's based on.
All right, well, the mainstream media heard the story about Cindy Garcia's husband of
15 years. He was deported back to Mexico. Mainstream media runs with it and says, family broken up, husband sent back to Mexico. This is inhumane. This is wrong. Listen to the wife being interviewed, and I don't think mainstream media was expecting how calm she was and her lack of animosity. Listen.
I am not upset at our government due to the fact that I am a U.S. citizen and that our laws come first. Our laws are just broken and need to be fixed. But I can't be mad at Trump for doing his job, because that is his job, to protect us as U.S. citizens from criminals.
Oops, I never expected that answer. If you're on CNN, you don't expect that answer, do you?
Of course you don't, but I think this just goes to show that legal immigrants and even family members of illegal immigrants also believe in border security. There's a reason people come over to this country and they want to live the American dream. It's not just for the opportunities that we have, but it's for the safety that we promise our citizens. So legal immigrants look at our border and they want it to be secure as well. That's why they live in this country, in part so they can feel safe and secure. And there is not an American out there that doesn't believe we need immigration reform. She was exactly right. It's heartbreaking to see families broken up like this. But the fact that she appreciates our country and our rule of law speaks a lot to the character of this person.
But Tommy, it's amazing. They say about 70% of immigration reform we all agree on. It's at 30% with the border wall and DACA and the illegals here already, which stops the whole process. You keep the couples together, those people that marry somebody in from another country. All that stuff just takes too long. It's too costly. The line is too long for people to do it legally. But we all got hung up on the stuff we don't agree on. Tommy, thanks so much.
You probably heard that Melania Trump had a kidney operation last month. That kind of thing happens to 48-year-olds, famous ones. She took a few weeks to recover, stayed off TV, didn't give any speeches, all pretty typical for someone who just got out of the hospital. But over at CNN, they were not buying that story. They are proud journalists, somewhat self-consciously. And if there's one thing they know for certain, one thing that was drummed into them by the top shelf journalism, it's that Republican first ladies lie a lot and are evil, and for the sake of civilization, it's all destroyed. So CNN did not buy a word of that. The network decided to use a dogged journalist to crack the case, the squeaky but persistent Brian Stelter, who was some kind of weekend journalist on television viewers ever actually seen. Stelter understood immediately that the whole kidney operation story was just a cover for something darker and more sensitive. Emanating from that dark Vladimir Putin himself. Stelter hinted as much to reporters. One thing
the president, the White House has been quite vocal about is Melania Trump and her status. The last was on May 24 days, more than 3 weeks. There's been a lot of questions about her surgery, her time at Walter Reed, and now her invisibility.
Questions about her surgery? Questions about her time at Walter Reed? What questions exactly? Who's asking those questions? Brian Stelter didn't say because he couldn't say those are not questions, and this is not what they would say because of she must be. Look who she's married to. Senator came to the same
taping the show right now. The First Lady has not been seen in public for 25 days. Well, I'm not surprised. It took that Shawshank guy years to tunnel out. Melania is supposedly re-emerging to attend an event in the White House tonight, but who can be sure? Because the event will be closed to the press. But the White House did release this official photo proving the First Lady was totally
Over at Rolling Stone, which apparently still exists, someone called Julian Smith speculated that Melania Trump was hiding concealed signs of physical abuse. Reed and then suggested that the president may have punched Melania and then ordered the Secret Service to cover it up. Keep in mind that once upon a time, David Frum was a serious intellectual, or what passed for one in Washington. Now he's merely a buffoon. And even more buffoonish as of last night, when the actual Melania Trump showed up at the White House for a veterans event, very much alive and unscathed. So much for all those questions Brian Stelter pretended to care about. What's so interesting about this is how much journalists hate Melania Trump. Imagine hating Melania Trump. Whatever else she is, Melania Trump is not an overbearing public figure. She's not lecturing you about your weight or trying to control your personal life. She doesn't weigh in on, I don't know, tax rates or global warming. It's unlikely she'll be running for Senate from New York when this is all over. Nobody thinks she's one of her husband's key political advisors. You may never even have heard Melania Trump's voice. Many people haven't. She doesn't talk much in public. Melania Trump has done absolutely nothing wrong to you or anyone you know or anyone you will ever meet. She married Donald Trump. That is her only sin in the eyes of the press corps, and yet it's enough to disqualify her, even from the most basic consideration of decency. Here, for example, is super sensitive modern guy comedian Jimmy Kimmel making fun of her accent, which he thinks is silly and foreign sounding, alien, really.
I'm curious, just like a cat, asking questions about this and that.
So you think Kimmel would be okay mocking the accent of one of his mini Guatemalan housekeepers? How about of an MS-13 member, please? But Melania? Well, she's therefore she's guilty. There was a time when the left used to argue that people don't judge for what they do. Ladies, all individuals like you are telling us about God. Collective punishment is wrong. That's what they said. But they have to believe just to be totally clear, I never typically defend the honor of politicians. In fact, as a rule, I don't. But Melania Trump's not a politician. Why are they attacking her? What does she have to do with it?
You know, in large part, it's because they're jealous and they're envious. Here you've got a woman who has power, she has influence, she's perfectly lovely, she's smart, she speaks 5 languages. Yes, she married a man that they don't like, but she has access now to everything that they now do not have access to. They used to be the ones who would be fawned over, who would be looked to for power and for appointment and for credibility. Now it's a woman who never really cares about them, has gone to certainly some cocktail parties, but it doesn't care about what the elite in Washington necessarily thinks or says. She cares about her son, she cares about her family, she cares about her parents, and that's her crime as well. But keep in mind, of course, this is for every woman who has dared to be part of this administration. And this is where, when you talk about the hypocrisy of the left, is the attacks on these women are misogynistic. And look, let me say about the attacks on the First Lady in particular, when they talk about her either being beaten by the president or hiding in Walter Reed or having to secrete herself away, it presumes that she's a victim, that she's helpless, that she is not willing to take care of her own life. That kind of misogyny is an insult not just to the First Lady, but for women who do experience violence and domestic violence. And yet these are the people who are supposed to be the champions for women. The fact of the matter is that the arguments about championing women come from, at this point, from the center-right argument that women are individuals, that they're smart, that the First Lady's an example of a powerful woman living a life that best suits her. And she should be lauded for that.
Well, yeah, I mean, she certainly never bothered anybody. Mark Penn, what I find so interesting about this, I'm trying to imagine the conversation where Jeff Zucker over at CNN calls up his sad little errand boy that's Stelter kid and says, go ahead and attack, it's time to attack Melania, okay? And I'm thinking, if you really think that it's appealing to attack Melania Trump, of all people you could attack, Melania Trump, your judgment has been distorted.
Well, it's not politically smart right now. If you look at the last CNN poll, she is at 57% favorable. She had 53% of the women favorable to her, much higher percentage of men, because men are more Republican. But that means that you don't want to attack because you're attacking the voters that you need. And they probably see this as a kind of wrong idea because, no one uses silence better than Trump. And that silence, you see, now has all of America ready to tune in tomorrow when she reappears on the scene. So politically, given her ratings, it's not a very smart thing.
Is it possible? I mean, you sort of ran the political operation at the White House for a long time, and you used data to do it, heavily used data. When people become so emotional, and when a political cause becomes a moral cause, pretty hard for them to make rational decisions, isn't it?
Well, I think that's right. I think that a lot of what we see today is about getting back to rationality in our politics. Now, Hillary Clinton, as First Lady, endured a lot of attacks when she went into health care and controversial issues. But when she went to It Takes a Village, the country united. Melania Trump is she's trying to help kids. She's doing those things that the country can agree on. So it doesn't make sense.
I guess what I dislike about this whole thing, Tammy, is the way that the left has framed everything as a moral divide. So it's like nothing about Trump can be good, and everything that is against Trump must be good. That seems like an inherently insane way.
Well, it is. In and of itself, it's immoral. But let me say also that the attacks on the First Lady are personal. You know, we can talk about Hillary getting into